Hi, and welcome. This is our Parent Institute for Junior High ELA Success. We're so glad that you're here to join us in talking about ways that you can support your student in being more successful in English language arts at the junior high level. My name is Amanda Diodet. I am the secondary ELA coach for the Queen Creek School District. I also taught junior high ELA for several years before I moved into this position. So this is a little bit of a passion of mine. We are going to be sharing out this recording as well as sharing this slideshow out with you. So if you are interested in some of the links that I'm going to show you as we go through this presentation, you can access those through the slideshow that we will share with you as well. So just be thinking as we go through, what is it that you hope to get out of this presentation? If you have any lingering questions after this finishes, please do feel free to reach out via email. And I can share that my email is adiodet@qcusd.org. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you have. So some of the why behind tonight, this slide has a lot of data on it, but one of the things that we are passionate about in Queen Creek, and that is a priority for us, is that we are helping our students make annual growth academically, as well as preparing them for their post-graduation opportunities. And we know that it starts at a young age. We're not going to go through all the data points here, but we do know that for some of these higher paying jobs that include benefits, pensions, some of those key components, they're going to require some additional schooling, either a trade school, a bachelor's degree, some sort of additional post-secondary education or training. And we also know that about 60% of students that go to community college in Arizona require some sort of remediation. So sometimes our kids aren't quite as prepared as we might want them to be. So we want to start really early on, even at this junior high level, in helping to build up that foundation for students to be successful. So as they go through high school and then beyond, they're really ready to meet those challenges. So our objective tonight is to give a little bit more information to parents about what language arts instruction looks like at the junior high level, what are some of the programs that we are using, what interventions are available from the school if your student is struggling, and also some ideas for how parents can support student success at home. And even if students aren't struggling, some of these ideas will apply for helping them to extend their learning, push themselves a little bit further, but also in some fun ways. So the first part we're going to take a look at is what's happening at school in junior high for ELA. And this graphic kind of does a nice job of illustrating a major shift that happens in ELA education from the elementary school to the middle school level. We have a junior high 7, 8, but in those middle school years, kind of 6, 7, 8, we start to see a shift in reading education specifically, where students are going from learning how to read, like how to decode words, the phonics, the sounds, the fluency, into really having to read in order to learn information, right? Middle school and junior high is really all about applying some of those reading skills and using those reading skills to gather information, access complex texts, starting to analyze how authors are creating and structuring their texts, how are authors using language in certain ways, using the order of events to make certain points, to create meaning. So it's really, really important at that junior high level that students have strong comprehension skills, because now we're really looking at reading to analyze and to learn versus just learning how to decode words. So that's a pretty big shift. And one of the other shifts actually happens in the amount of time for reading instruction in the classroom as well. So we have a standards focus at the junior high level of looking at skills that students need to get into those higher levels of textual understanding. And students with strong fluency skills who may be able to look at a page and very clearly read all the words may still struggle if their comprehension skills aren't as strong. So that's where we really want to be helping our kids and checking in with them. You're reading this, but are you understanding? Maybe some of those follow-up questions of, well, what does that mean? How do you know that that's what the author is saying? And I guess one of the shifts is actually in the amount of time allocated for reading and writing instruction. We have about a 54-minute daily ELA class period. So it's a little bit shorter than what they might have had at the elementary level just because of the structure of the day and the scheduling. So there may be some more outside reading that's assigned or required by teachers at this level. And it's really important that students are doing that because in the classroom, teachers are going to be giving the instruction, modeling, walking through some examples with the students to show them, this is how we do this analysis. These are the things that we're looking for. This is the way you can approach these kinds of questions or these kinds of complex texts. But that additional practice to really solidify the skills and become masterful at it may require some additional outside practice. So essentially the instructional model for reading at the junior high level is we follow a mastery learning model. So every about 2 weeks, the teachers will have a different focus standard. These are the state standards for education. And that focus standard will be what they're really working hard on for that about 2-week time period. The teacher will be teaching them the skills they need to access that standard. They'll be doing practice in class. And then at the end of that time period, they'll take a little 5-question formative assessment. You may hear your kid coming home talking about their formatives or see those in parent view as a quiz grade. But those formative assessments give the teachers information on whether or not the student has learned the skills for that standard. And if the students don't do as well on that formative, then they'll have an opportunity to go to reteach during achievement hour. So the teachers meet every week, they go over that data, they look at which students might need some additional help, and they plan for their instruction. So they'll get formal reteach if they go to achievement hour, but also teachers will look at what are some skills, maybe if the whole class needs a little bit more review, that they're going to incorporate into their lessons. So we do have a couple of different levels of reading interventions available at the junior high level. We have achievement hour, like I mentioned, that's based on their formative scores. If they do go to achievement hour, they're going to get a skills-based reteach from an ELA teacher. So it'll be an ELA teacher who's going over those same skills from that standard that was on that formative that student needs more help with. So they'll teach it in a different way, use some different examples, do additional practice, maybe try a different strategy with those students to help them reach mastery on that skill. An additional level of support is meeting with our reading specialist. So Queen Creek Junior High and Newell Barney both right now have reading specialists, and they will typically pull very small groups of students, usually no more than 4 to 6, and do a more intensive focus on reading skills and comprehension that's really individualized to students who are especially struggling with their reading skills. Both of these interventions are on top of tutoring that's available from our teachers. So if your student is having some troubles, reach out to their ELA teacher and they can give you more information about what tutoring opportunities are available directly from their teacher, in addition to other interventions. So that was kind of an overview of the reading instruction. I wanted to give you also a quick overview of the writing instruction that we utilize at the junior high level. And what we're using right now is the Jane Schaffer writing program. And it's pretty basic and I think fairly straightforward. And we utilize this at the junior high and at the high school, and it gives us a common vocabulary for students to be familiar with. So as we introduce this at the junior high level, the students get familiar with the terms, they get familiar with the writing structure that we introduce, and then it carries through all the way up to 12th grade. So it's really building the foundation for their high school writing as well. So it creates those building blocks. So the basics of the Jane Schaffer writing program, like I said, it is common vocabulary. So we introduce to students when they're writing a paragraph that they would start with a topic sentence, right, that states what is this paragraph going to be about. They would need to include concrete details. These are facts often quoted from a source. They could be paraphrased as well. There's a big movement, especially in the junior high level. It does start in elementary school, but especially in the junior high and high school, of source-based writing for students. It's not necessarily their own opinions anymore, but looking at teaching them how do you pull information from articles, from websites, from sources, and integrate that to support your ideas and improve your thinking. So concrete details are what we call all of those items that come from the source, that quoted information, that evidence to support. The third component of paragraph writing that we teach is the commentary. That is where they're going to interpret or analyze that concrete detail. That's where they're really showing their thinking. How am I connecting this concrete detail to the topic of my paragraph? How does this quote that I've just given you prove what I said in my topic sentence? Or why is this quote important? Why does it matter? What's the significance? And sometimes students struggle with that piece. That can be a tough one because that's really that higher level thinking, that analysis skill. And then finally, the concluding sentence at the end of the paragraph that sums up the paragraph. It often mirrors that topic sentence. If you notice, these are both blue because they are often very similar. And we do use this color coding with our students as well. So as you see, the topic sentence and concluding sentence are both blue, like I said, because they kind of mirror each other. Concrete details are red, the commentary is green. So if you see students coming home with some like color coding on their essays, it's a great visual for students to kind of see that structure of a paragraph. And this is a pretty flexible structure. So as students progress in their writing, teachers may be asking them to include multiple concrete details, multiple pieces of commentary, and really expanding on their writing skills. And like I said, this is a foundation. As they move into high school, as they become more sophisticated writers, this formula it becomes more flexible, right? They can move beyond it when they're ready, but it gives them some really great building blocks for writing that they can apply to research writing, to argument writing. It's pretty versatile. So if we were together in person, we were going to do a quick little activity here. But as you can see, here's a sample paragraph with just 5 sentences. The sentences are numbered. And we're going to take a look at how would we color code this according to our Jane Schaffer. So if we look at this, the first sentence would be color coded blue. That's the topic sentence, talking about companies using robot labor. It's making a claim that it's more efficient and cost effective than human labor. The second sentence here is a concrete detail, pretty clear because you can see the quote that's included from the text. Sentences 3 and 4 give examples of commentary. Right? So what is this quote proving about the claim that was made in the topic sentence? Or how does this quote prove what was said in the topic sentence? They're giving more elaboration there. And then the last sentence kind of sums it up, gives that conclusion, and ties it back to the topic sentence. So this was just a quick example to show you what you might see your student coming home with at the junior high level and how they might be labeling. So if they ask you for help and they say, I need one more concrete detail for my paragraph, you have a better idea of what they're talking about. So that was kind of a quick overview of what the reading and writing components look like in the classroom. So the next portion of this is really going to go into ways that you as a parent can support at home, because that is so essential as well, especially as students get older. The classroom time that they have with their ELA teachers is a little bit more limited, but there are still things that you can do to support at home. And the biggest one is reading. The more students read, the more they practice, the bigger impact it has on their entire educational life. This is a great graphic to take a look at. It just kind of illustrates the importance of that reading time. As you can see, as the number of minutes per day that a student reads increases, their word exposure increases exponentially. The difference between reading 5 minutes per day, the number of words you see in a year, to reading for 20 minutes a day, to getting almost 2 million words in a school year, is huge. And we know vocabulary development is so critical. That's a big piece of that reading comprehension puzzle. If students don't know what a lot of the words in the text mean, it becomes very difficult for them to understand the text at all. And one of the benefits of doing a lot of reading and getting exposed to a lot of words is that even if a student's not sitting there with a dictionary next to them looking up all the words that they don't know, by reading those words used in context and kind of figuring out, okay, well, I think it probably means this because this is how it's being used, they start to form that point of reference. They start to build their own definition. And it might not be word for word a dictionary definition, but they have an idea of the word. So when they're seeing it in different contexts, they're recognizing it, they're building upon that, and they can start to glean meaning from those texts more readily, just from that vocabulary exposure. Reading also has a huge impact on standardized test scores. You can see down here at the bottom, right, the student who reads 1 minute per day, 5 minutes per day, 5 minutes per day, up to 20 minutes per day, and where their scores fall on some of those standardized tests. So one of the very visible ways that we see that correlation. And then also building background knowledge. And this is something that I think sometimes we don't think about, but the more that students read, the more things they learn about. Even if they're reading fiction, they might be reading a fiction book about King Arthur, but learning about concepts like jousting, how medieval society was organized, with the levels of the aristocracy and knights, and some of those concepts that then when they see those in a history textbook, they're making connections now. Now, this isn't something I've never heard of before. I can make connections and I'm understanding this history text better because I have background knowledge on this topic. So the more they read, the more background knowledge they have. And when they're exposed to other texts in other subject areas, they can start to make those connections and have those deeper understandings. So it's my little plug for reading there. And there's some different ways that this can look at home. There's some different tools that you could use. Read Theory is a tool that I'm going to show you in just a few minutes, and totally free. It's available online. Students and parents can make free accounts, and it'll give you a little diagnostic to kind of see what your reading level is. And then it'll give passages and questions at that level and kind of progressively level you up according to your ability level. So it's a great way for students to get some just little practice in and continue to progress at their own speed. Article a day is another option. So readworks.org, again, another totally free website, has thousands of articles on different topics. They have a program that's called Article of the Day, and you definitely do not have to do that particular program. You could go in and pick whatever articles you want, but it's designed to help students build background knowledge. So this is what this website looks like. I have an account, so I went to log in, but you could go to sign up if you were setting up your account. And you can go in and see lots and lots of articles that are available. You can explore by topic. You can come over and select your grade level. So if you have a 7th grade student, you could select 7th grade. And you can even select the types of text you want. So if you only want to see nonfiction, fiction, poetry, you can choose what you would like to see there. So if I want nonfiction, now there are lots and lots of different articles that I can choose from to read on lots of different topics. The secrets of Viking ships, water, Sacagawea, and these could be really interesting, you know, if you decide to do an article of the day at home and just take a look at lots of different topics and expand that background knowledge a little bit more. Another really fun idea that some families do is they start a family book club, and they get a few copies of the same book and read it together. And that can be a great way to engage with your child, but also give you an opportunity to see firsthand, what are they really understanding of this book? You know, we've both read this same text. Now I can see, what are they understanding from it? Are they having any misconceptions that I can support them in sifting through and figuring out? So that can be a really fun one. If you're looking for texts to help your child reading at home, Lexile Level can be something to look at to help you choose some texts that are at the right level for your child, because we do want to be practicing, not necessarily with super difficult texts, but with texts that are going to provide some challenge and give them the opportunity to grow. So Lexile Level is one measure of a text difficulty. It looks at things like word length, how difficult the words are, how long are the sentences, how well does the text fit together? You know, is it in order? Does it jump around? And it puts those into a number that becomes the Lexile level. So you can see here for the 6th to 8th grades, the Lexile range that we want to push students to be reading in is about a 925 to an 1185 range. And you can see those passages on ReadWorks all come with a Lexile level. You can see here on this Mix the Old with the New article, it says 1050L. That's a 1050 Lexile level. So it'll give you that information. It's obviously not the only thing that determines the difficulty level of a text. You also, of course, want to look at the content. Is that appropriate? Also, the age of the text can have a pretty big impact. If it's an older text and they're using language, like more historical language, that can be challenging, even though the Lexile level might not be as high. If they're using language in a more archaic way, that can be challenging for students as well. So there's other things to look at, but the Lexile level can give you an idea. And Lexile.com is a great tool to give you some ideas as you are looking for texts. It can help you. So under Lexile tools here, you can go to find a book. And you can get some ideas for reading. So you could just plug in here in Lexile range the numbers from that chart, or you could do a more general search. So I have a 7th grade student. My student says that the readings they're assigned in class are just right for them. So now I'm going to search for books that might be appropriate reading levels for this child. And it will pull up a bunch of different titles that you could explore, and you could write down, a few that your child's interested in to look for at the library or on Amazon, to just help find some text that might be at that right level for them. Okay. If you want a little bit more information about what your Lexile level might be, you can go to readtheory.org and do that diagnostic, and that will give you an approximation of what your current ability level is. And then, like I said, it'll assign practice passages and questions for that level. And as students are successful with those, it will start to move them up in difficulty levels. Or, if they hit some that are just way too hard, it'll level them down and give them some additional practice and support at a lower level. And once they get more comfortable, bump them up again. So I'm just going to show you this site really quickly. This is what it looks like. And you can absolutely sign up if you go to the sign up tab. You can sign up as a parent and create an account that your student can use. And I already have an account, so I'm going to log in here just to show you what it looks like when you get in. But once you're in there, it'll give you a little 8-question diagnostic to take to assess your reading level. And then once it has your approximate level, it will give you passages. And you can see the level of the passage. You can see the questions that are here. And most of them are pretty short. They're pretty quick practice pieces. So that's just another tool that's available both for practice and for getting an idea about where your student is with their Lexile level. There are also a lot of tools available for vocabulary support. Like I said, vocabulary is one of those areas that if students have a really strong vocabulary, that reading comprehension tends to be a little bit easier. So there are some online tools. Vocabulary.com is a fun one. They have games. They also have vocabulary lists that correlate with a lot of different young adult books. Oh, that's not going to work for me today. Okay, I don't want to create a class. I'm not going to show you that right now. But you can go in and you can do an account yourself. It doesn't have to be a teacher account. Again, there's a free version of it available, and they can select a book they're reading. It could be a book for class. They have a lot of classic literature books that they've created vocabulary lists for, that then students can go in and say, you know what, in class we're reading The Diary of Anne Frank. We're on chapter 4. I'm going to pull up the vocabulary list for chapter 4 from vocabulary.com and do some games and exercises with those vocabulary words. So that's an option. And then some people do kind of like they have a family book club. They might do a family word wall or a family word of the day, where they either create the wall with all the different words that they've been learning. You can include the meaning, the definition, an explanation, a picture with the word as kind of a practice and a reference, or even just like, here's our word of the day. Let's see who can use it correctly the most times today, or the most times this week, and have a little prize there. This, like I said, I'm going to share this presentation with you if you want to view it, and you can use all of these links. This link will open up a PDF for you of some very common functional words that are cross-content vocabulary words. And there's a ton of words on this list. Some of them your student is going to already know. Words like all, always. Some of these are going to be some common words, but again, they might look a little bit different when they're used in an academic setting. But some of these would also be some good ones that they might not be as familiar with. Isolate, opponent, represent. Some of those words that maybe they've heard before, but they're not feeling like they have a really strong understanding of how to use them, that are high transfer words. So if they can master some of these words, they're going to be more successful in all their content areas because these are words that show up not just in ELA, but across the board. So just some additional resources there for vocabulary development. Like I said, so important for comprehension. Something else that you can think of, one more tool that I'll throw out there for you, is one that you can use just in having a conversation with your student. And that's thinking about the types of questions that you're asking them, especially if you're talking about schoolwork or something that they've read, asking some high-level questions that are going to help them develop their critical thinking skills. Because lots of what we do in ELA, the writing, the conversation, is looking at that text and taking it apart, analyzing it. Why did the author do this? How did the author say this? Okay, the author develops this idea, but how did they do it? What words did they use? What structures did they use? Why is it effective? Why is it not effective? So getting kids to answer questions where they have to explain why or how, where they have to give specific examples that support their thinking, is really important in helping them to develop in ELA, but also critical thinking skills across the board. So this link here goes to a handout that just has some question stems that you could use with your student at some different levels. So it kind of goes up in skill levels from application level to analysis level, all the way up to evaluating and synthesizing information. But this could be kind of a handy tool. You know, if your student is reading something and you want to prompt them with some high-level questions, it gives you some question stems. It even gives them some answer stems that they could use if they're like, oh, I don't really know where to start in responding to this question. They could use that. A word bank of some higher level vocabulary that they might want to use to explain themselves, or words that they might see in some of those high level questions that would be probably good words to be familiar with. So again, just another tool that you could use, or again, you could even just ask your students some simple questions like, well, why do you think that? How do you know? What part of the text showed you that that was the right answer? Or what part of the text made you think that? Those are still going to be really great questions to ask your child and help them start to build those critical thinking skills. The last piece I'm going to leave you with is just some ideas on avoiding summer slide. There is some good research on summer reading. I know we're just before spring break right now, but summer is going to be here before we know it. And you know, children who do not read in the summer can lose 2 to 3 months of reading skills, which is really scary, especially when we're thinking about wanting our kids to be prepared going into high school, getting ready for some of those rigorous times that lie ahead. So kids who do read tend to gain a month of reading proficiency. So anything we can do to encourage them to grab a book during that time is huge. So I just listed some websites here. They're not all live linked, but these are some that could give you some suggestions or ideas for books. A lot of these have reviews from teens or young adults who have read the book and recommend it, can give you some good recommendations or ideas. And then this link is also to the Maricopa County Library website. And a lot of the library services are restricted right now due to COVID-19, But if you go under quick links and you go down to #teens, you can see some of what's available for teens from the library. And in the search catalog, they have all of their books, of course, but they also have a lot of digital resources as well. So you can actually check out ebooks that students could read on a phone or a tablet without having to physically go to the library. So you can come over here on the left side. If you click digital collection, you can see all these books pop up, and these are ebooks right here that you can check out without having to have a physical copy. And of course, you can narrow it down. You can narrow it down by genres or what they're actually interested in, but it'll give you again a lot of options for some young adult teen books that you can either check out or utilize an ebook for. So thank you so much for joining us virtually for this. As I said, this was just kind of a quick overview of what we're doing in ELA instruction at the junior high level in the schools, the interventions that we have available to help students, and then hopefully giving you some ideas of things that you could utilize at home as well. There is a quick survey here, and just thank you so much for joining. If you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, my email is adeodutt@qcusd.org, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have to follow up this presentation. Thank you, and have a great day.